Hello, I wanted to talk about some of the different shapes that prokaryotes can come in. Prokaryotes, as you may remember, are those cells that have no nucleus. So they come in many different shapes, as you can see from this diagram here. We'll go over a few of them. You don't have to have these memorized. So round bacteria are called cocci, and as you can see, they come in different arrangements also. These different arrangements arise when a parent cell divides into a daughter cell or into two daughter cells, and they don't completely separate from each other in physical space. So as you can see, you got one coccus cell, and then it divides and becomes two, but they don't really move very far away from each other. Now, sometimes you will see them become encapsulated together. So what that means is that if this particular type of bacteria has a capsule, the capsule will go around both of the two bacteria that are stuck together. Staphylococci, we have here these clusters. Again, one divides and now you have, another one next to it, and maybe then this one divides, and now you've got two over here. Now this one divides, you get two over here, and it just keeps going in random directions. Tetrads are very orderly, and it's always four. So one will divide into two, and then both of these two will divide. And then after they get to four, they will start to spread away from each other. Sarcina is the same thing as a tetrad, except instead of it being four, it's eight. So they'll divide once and then divide again. And then each of those will divide one more time and create the ones that are behind. So it's like a little cube. And then streptococci is this one in a long chain. So one divides, and now there's two, but now this one divides, and now there's another one, and then so on and so forth. So here are some slides that show you what they look like. Now, these are all with the oil immersion lens on a light microscope. So it is most likely 1000x total magnification. So this is an example of streptococci. And you can remember streptococci because strep sounds kind of like stripe. And here we have a stripe of round bacteria. Staphylococci, see how they're just kind of in these random clusters. Some of them are kind of shaped a little bit like something, and some are like chains, but overall it seems kind of random. The first people to look at this, they thought that they looked like clusters or bunches of grapes. And if you look at this little bunch down here in the corner, that kind of does look the way grapes grow on a vine. Diplococci are round and in pairs, so you see them paired up in multiples of two. Tetrads forming groups of four. Then we have straight-shaped bacteria. So they're not round, they're rod-shaped. Some people actually call them rods instead of bacilli, but bacilli is the more technically correct term. The singular of bacilli is bacillus. So we have Coccobacillus, which is kind of round. It's still a bacillus because it is longer than it is tall, or you might say wider than it is long, however you want to describe those dimensions. One dimension is longer than the other. Whereas with a coccus, you would have a perfect sphere. This is the shape they normally would be. And then as you can see, when they divide, they can do the same thing where they sort of form pairs, they can form tetrads, they can form strepto arrangements, a long strip. And they can also form these things called palisades. And they're called that because they sort of look like the columns that would hold up the front of a palace. So again, some pictures, Coccobacilli. So these ones, if you look at them very closely, you'll notice that this one, it may be easier to tell that it is longer than it is wide. But when you look at them side on under the microscope, and you never know which way they're going to lay on a microscope slide, the ones that are side on are going to look round, but it's just round enough to fool you. Here we have a Streptobacilli arrangement. Here's a palisade arrangement. And as you see, it's kind of a random number, and they're clusters all over the place, but they do tend to line up nicely in these little rows. Then there are some other shapes. So we've got the fusiform bacteria, which are, it says it's an enlarged rod, but I like to think of it as being pinched on the ends. And then I remember that like fused, like it's fused on the ends. Vibrio, they can be shaped kind of like this C shape, or they can also be what they call comma shaped, which means that like one lobe of it is going to be bigger than the other. And often they will have a flagella coming off of that skinny end. And then there's also club shaped rods, and there are also helical shaped rods. So it's a rod that looks like somebody grabbed both ends and wrung it out like a washcloth. So this one has a couple different kinds of bacteria in this slide, but the large, thick bacteria, those are the fusiform. See how they're kind of shaped like almost like a cigar or a hot dog, where they're pointy on the ends. And then these are some Vibrio, which it's a little difficult to tell because, again, if you see them at an angle, you can't quite tell what angle it is. But this one down here does a good job of showing the curve. These ones are club shaped. And as you can see, they have like this long skinny bit and then a round part at the end. And if you were to look at them front on, you might accidentally think that they were round, or you might look at them at an angle and you might think that they are regular straight shaped, but they're actually club shaped. And there are other shapes out there too. One of the other ones that was in this image up here, I go back one, there are corkscrews, and there are filamentous, which is just like a long worm-like sort of shape. And then there are these ones called spirochetes. Another name for spirochete is spirilla. And if we look back at the picture that had the fusiform bacteria in it, you can see that there are some spirilla or spirochetes in here. And honestly, these are my favorite because they look like little party streamers, and also they rhyme with my last name. So what's not to love, right?